Welcome to I Married a Urologist. This is a fun and educational show where the doctor's wife discusses all things urology, a taboo subject that will affect 100% of the human race at some point in their lifetime. Join host Madeline Zech Ruiz, the author of I Married a Urologist, who fixes women too, wife of urological surgeon Dr. Henry Ruiz, as she interviews medical experts, patients, and industry professionals who develop solutions for problems with our downstairs plumbing. Madeline lifts the veil to all things urology and helps us learn how to reclaim our quality of life.
Hello, and welcome to I Married a Urologist. Our show discusses all things urology, a subject that has a lot of taboo. But I'm here to share with you all kinds of stories from regular people like myself, like Angela, who have dealt with urological issues and were too embarrassed to talk about it. So I wrote a book called I Married a Urologist, Keep Your Human Plumbing Healthy. And in this book, we address the top 10 urological issues that affect most men and women, because every single person at some point in their life will need a urologist. So today, I'm happy to welcome a very important person. This person, Angela Valledares, has been working at the side of Dr. Henry Ruiz, a board-certified reconstructive urologist, for the last 20 years. And she has all kinds of information that I'm going to ask her about today as we learn about all things urology together. Angela, welcome to my show. You are so brave to be here. This is a big subject. Now, first I want our audience to know that you started this job when you were just 22 years old, didn't you? And when you're 22 years old and you're starting in a urology office, I can't even imagine what you thought or what you saw. So let me ask you a question. Why did you get into urology?
Well, I got into urology because our job recruiter, I had just finished school and they're like, you know what, we found a job for you and it's going to be in urology. And I'm like, okay. I didn't even know what urology was. I was like, I'm working for a doctor. Like, that was my excitement. So I get there to the doctor. I'm super excited thinking, okay, I'm going to be doing blood pressures and doing what they taught us in school. No, the first thing I do is I see a naked man. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, what do I do? Like, and
did they train you for that?
I got trained for about a day. Yeah, because the girl had to leave. Well, thanks to the doctor, I was able to learn different techniques, different studies, the reason why they do many studies. So to me, that's just when I fell in love with urology.
You actually love it.
I do, because I feel like I know. I see someone like keep constantly going to the restroom. I'm like, that man has BPH, or that man this, or that lady, I know her bladder's dropped, or so forth, you know?
Yeah, listen, you and I are in the same boat, because married to a urologist, people actually come up to us wherever we are in public, and they'll be like, hey, doc, so great to see you. I have a question. And I knew nothing about urology. I thought I married a neurologist, but I guess he was a urologist. But I had...
Big difference.
I didn't know, because I didn't have any broken plumbing problems. So I was unaware, like almost everybody, until you need one, right?
Exactly.
So what is it really like working in a urology office? Because people are suffering and they are humiliated, aren't they?
Exactly.
So what is it really like in there?
It's a very big world. People might think urology is just for men. No, it's also for women, and of all ages, men and women. You see young guys in their teens, and you see older men in their 90s, and women of all ages and all sizes too.
And they come in, they're very distressed when they get there, aren't they?
They are.
I notice that when I go into the waiting room of, the practice, people are sitting like this. And if you make one noise, all heads turn. Like, me? Are you calling me? Because they're so on edge when they're at the doctor. And I feel that stress when they come up to us in public with their problem. So I have a question. What are some of the most common urological problems that come into the office? What are like the top 3 or 4 common urological problems that almost all men and women will deal with?
Okay, well, one of the main issues and one of the specialties that the urologist sees is women with incontinence. I never even knew what incontinence was. I never even knew what the word was. I thought that was like rocket science.
Yeah.
And now we know that it's common. Now you see commercials, you see all types of different advertisements for medications and treatments, and that's one of the main things. We have a lot of men that come in for low testosterone, and like I mentioned, all ages. You have young teenagers, well, almost adult teenagers, and older men that have problems with their testosterone and their sexual orientation.
Yeah, or sexual desire. Yeah. But we do that too, don't we? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother subject. That's a whole nother show, but that's a very important part of urology.
Very.
So with the issues for men and women, whether it's incontinence, erectile dysfunction, prostate cancer, peeing blood, what does a patient, when do they decide to call a urologist? And what are those calls like? I mean, I'm a guy and my penis isn't working. How do I call the doctor and have that conversation with you?
Well, honestly, first of all, it must take them a lot of courage, because I've been on the other side. Sometimes I help answer calls, and I do notice that they're like, I need an appointment for just an exam. And you're like, okay, well, what type of exam? Because you want to see what type of exam do they want. Well, then when they start being more like, well, it's just for something like I need to discuss with the doctor, or like they're very private. They don't want to say, I already know it has something to do with erectile dysfunction, maybe their testosterone. Women, the same thing, like, do you all see for this situation or that situation, knowing that that's what we see for? And I'm like, yeah, we do. And then you're able to get them in and see the urologist.
Now, one thing that I know is super common for both men and women is that men and women both leak.
Yep.
This was a surprise to me. Okay, well, when you're young, I thought when you're young you don't have any problems. But men and women both leak. What are the age ranges for this kind of condition? Does it just happen to old people?
No, it happens to all ages. Women, young women, women that have had maybe many children, and even older women that have had many children. It happens to all ages. Men, the same, especially when they're a little bit older and start having prostate problems. So that's when they come in.
Now, here's a question I don't know,
Okay.
but you don't just have to have babies to leak, right?
No, you don't. There's many reasons, many causes. One of the main issues that they do have is overweight women. They have a lot
Obesity?
of obesity.
How much overweight are we talking? Like 5-10 pounds, like the pandemic 10? Or is it like obesity?
No, like obesity. It all varies, but yes, usually it's obesity. Like the larger people, larger women, like with their weight, it pushes down on their bladder, so that sometimes causes incontinence and other issues.
Okay, that was a great segue. So I'm gonna run with that one.
Okay.
So this takes me right into another subject that
Okay.
is very sensitive for women, and I did not even know that this could happen. And it's called pelvic prolapse. What is that? That's a big word for people like me who didn't know. So what is that, and what kind of patient comes in with that problem? Is it young? Is it old? Is it obese? Is it, what is that?
Pelvic organ prolapse is when it's come out of its vagina. So their bladders come out usually if a woman has had a lot of children, their bladder falls out, or maybe they've had other gynecological procedures, like maybe a hysterectomy, or there's a little vault left after they removed your uterus. So then sometimes their bladder comes out, pushes out, and that's when they have that issue. And like you mentioned right now, all ages, young women. You see young women with tight jeans. Don't always think that it's just because they want to be flaunting their body or anything. No, they want to be holding their bladder in place, because I've seen it.
It's so true. Here, I would look at some women in these very tight jeans, whether they were obese or younger or a bit older. And what I learned is that tight jeans are almost a medical device, because they do, in fact, hold a woman's organs in place. And that is just one example of how they hide their problem, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and they don't need to hide, do they? Because this can be solved, right?
It can be solved. But like you mentioned earlier, women are embarrassed sometimes. They don't want no one to know, especially their family or maybe even their spouse, that they leak, or who wants to be going to the bathroom every 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
And how do you have that conversation? Oh, excuse me, I'm leaking. I have to go change my clothes again. So what I've learned in this subject of talking about with you for 20 years and my husband for 20 years is that urological conditions tend to isolate people, and it also can break up relationships, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so although we may be giggling here and having some, humor with this conversation, this is a very serious conversation, because what I learned in the 20 years being married to my urologist husband is I saw a lot of people suffering.
Yes.
A lot of people came up to me with their questions because they were desperate for help. They wanted to know if they could get their problem solved, because they had already, in most cases, isolated from their loved ones, trying to hide the problem.
Yes.
Right. So there is help for incontinence. So let's move along. Here's one for you. This is one where my husband says every single time, no matter what, they're going to call the urologist. And it's when that person starts to pee blood. That is a terrifying subject, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Now, does peeing blood mean you're going to die?
No, not necessarily. Peeing blood does mean that, let me find out where this blood is coming from. So when they come see the doctor, the urologist, obviously the doctor's going to do all types of studies and exams to see where the blood's coming from. Sometimes it could just be maybe a kidney stone, or it could be
like a bladder stone, because I had a gentleman come up to me at a car dealership. It happens everywhere. And pulled me to the side after he gave me coffee and donuts to tell me that he needed to see my husband because he was peeing blood. Which, of course, he was sweating profusely because he was an older Latin man, and they're very private, aren't they?
They're very private.
Yeah, so he was telling me at work, and I knew that he was desperate. So, of course, I picked up the phone and called my husband and put him on the phone for a private consultation. Turned out to be a bladder stone, which I've never heard of in my entire life.
Yep.
Okay.
And there can also be more serious things like bladder cancer. Or some type of tumor or something growing in the bladder.
But that's not all the time, right?
No, it's not. But that's why you want to go find out what it is.
Most
of the times, sometimes it is nothing to worry about.
And to check for that, you go into your office, it's a 30-minute visit, you pee in a cup, they check for blood, and they do a physical exam?
The doctor will examine them. Maybe they'll need to do a more intense study, which is called a cystoscopy, and that's where they look inside the bladder with a tiny telescope. They're like peeking in and...
It's pretty quick, right?
Yeah, less than a minute.
And it's painless, right?
We do use some numbing jelly, but they won't feel anything.
Yeah,
it's just uncomfortable.
And you'll have your answer like that.
Yes.
Yeah, and peace of mind. So, get to your board-certified urologist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's kind of scary stuff. So let's get to the fun stuff.
Okay.
Let's talk about
fun stuff.
Let's talk about erectile dysfunction. I know that doesn't sound fun, but the reason I say it's fun is because there are so many answers to solve erectile dysfunction. Everything from pills,
medication,
to creams, injections, implants, vacuums.
Yep.
What am I missing?
I think you hit them all.
I wrote a book, so I hope I hit them all. Yes, so when a patient comes in for erectile dysfunction, what is the success rate for treatment?
In my 20 years, the success rate that I've seen is about 90%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What is the age range of patients that come in for erectile dysfunction?
The youngest person I've seen was in his early 20s.
Wow.
And the oldest person, believe it or not, that still goes to the clinic is in his 90s. Mm-hmm.
That is a rock star.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is that this is a very important issue.
Yes, it is.
And it affects men of all ages. Now, I will share something with you. This is so common that even my husband, the urologist, has also suffered from this same condition. And what he tells me is that it's not permanent, it's just temporary. And so it can be solved, can't it?
It can be, yes.
Yeah, so don't be shy. Get to your board certified urologist, and there's a bevy of options for you to choose from.
Tons.
And you and your doctor will work together to find the best solution for your erectile dysfunction.
Yes.
Okay, so after we get that solved, now it moves us on to another subject that's pretty popular. I put the top 10 in my book. This is how I know this. And it is lack of desire. Now, this is something that happens to a lot of women. How do I know this? Because I have a lot of girlfriends, and after the baby making years, when we had our babies and life was busy and not enough money in the bank and you're tired and sleep deprived and everything's going on, you are just not that interested in sex. And you start to think after time that it's your partner. You never seem to be satisfied with your partner because you have a lack of desire, a lack of interest. Now, this is a real medical condition that I learned. And what I learned is that there are solutions for this, right?
Yes.
But I also learned, which I did not know, that a man can have lack of desire.
Yes.
That is just something I never knew. But it just seems strange to me. We all think that men are always, desiring a woman, but that's not true, is it?
No, because that's what we see on media and TV, like, oh, the man this, but they don't show that side of the story.
Well, it puts a lot of pressure on the man, doesn't it?
Yes.
To perform, right? So, are there treatments for lack of desire for men and women?
Yes, there are treatments, especially for women, which they can go visit their gynecologist. But men, we see a lot of patients in our clinic, and they suffer. This is what usually they call low testosterone, low T. That's what's more common in the magazine.
I've seen it on TV.
In the magazines, low T, and it happens to many men of all ages. Like I mentioned, there's young patients, which that in the beginning that would surprise me when I learned more about urology. Like, these men are so young and they're having trouble, and yes, it does affect their self-esteem, but then after a while you see them in a few weeks, few months later, and man, they're a completely different person.
Really?
Oh yes.
Yeah, because they probably get their confidence back.
Oh yes, big time. And they're like, hey, how are you? And like making all this ruckus in the office, and you're like, hey, and they just seem happy, and you're like, man, that man's in a good mood. And then, of course, you get to know your patients, and you learn to love them because you see them so often.
Yeah.
You see them in the grocery stores, but man, you can tell the difference big time.
See, that's why you get to your board certified urologist.
Yes.
Don't you want to be the guy rocking it in the urology office because you're the success story? So there are treatments for lack of desire. Now, let's talk about the woman. Women, we don't think that we have lack of desire. We just think we don't like our husband. You love them, you hate them, you like them, you don't, you want them, you don't. And what ends up happening is that it's a combination of hormones, right? And maybe some depression, postpartum depression often can play a part in that. But a board certified urologist can diagnose that and treat it, can't they?
They can, and they have very good communication with other doctors, like some, they're gynecologists. They'll refer them over, or vice versa, and there is treatment, there's solutions. And
right.
I mean, this is something that I'm always telling my aunts, my grandma, well, not my grandma, my aunts.
Maybe your grandma.
I told my aunts and my friends, my older lady friends, like, guys,
get in.
Yes,
get this solved.
And I get them all appointments, and then they're in the best whatever, and I always get the best Christmas gifts. So
yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah.
I will tell you that urologists do work very well with gynecologists.
Yeah.
There's also what's called a urogynecologist, which is a separate board certification. But putting together a good team dealing with anything that has to do with your human plumbing is really the greatest gift you can give to yourself. So let's move on. I have a quick question though. When these people come in for lack of desire or erectile dysfunction, do they bring their partners? Because this is a partner issue. Or do they come in alone? And is it okay to bring somebody?
I would say 50 and 50. Some men do, the more private ones that don't want no one to know. They even want medication mailed to our office instead of their house. They come alone.
And that's okay?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. We do, we respect patients, and especially their privacy. We're all about privacy. And then you have those patients that have real good communication with their spouses, and they want to help them. Maybe their spouses are the ones that told them come in, So then you do have
Right.
those people that come in with their spouses.
Right. I will tell you, it is the spouse
Yeah.
most often that does encourage the man
Oh, yeah.
to get to the doctor. I will tell you, even though I'm married to a urologist, I have to tell him, you need to go in and have your checkup. When's the last time you got checked up?
Yeah.
And he's quite remiss in that, isn't he?
All men.
Yeah, I have to call our partner, Dr. Alex Feigl, and tell him you need to snag my husband and get him in for his own checkup because they're so busy taking care of all the other
Yes.
patients. Yeah, so get that. And what is the age for a prostate exam, by the way? Is it 40, 50?
The guidelines change differently, especially if they come from a family, maybe their parents or their uncle, a brother, grandfather had prostate cancer. Of course, they need to come a little bit sooner, but we do see people, men usually in their 50s, starting, once they hit that, they start coming in, and then, of course, there's those men that waited and they're late in their 60s, 70s, barely getting their first prostate exam, but that's okay, because that's why they come see the urologist. And
Right. And if there's a family history, don't wait that long. If you have a family history, I think they say get in there around age 40 and get that checkup taken
indeed.
care of. So, wow, this subject just grows and grows and grows. You could be talking about one thing it leads to another because the human plumbing is all connected, isn't it?
All connected.
Yeah, and you guys handle everything for anything that has to do with urine or pee-pee. That's when you start thinking urologist, okay?
Yeah.
That's what I had to learn.
Definitely.
Yeah, I was like, well, my OBGYN can handle this. And I had to learn that all things plumbing, for the most part, had to do with a urologist or a urogynecologist, which there are so many different types of urologists.
Yes.
It gets complicated. For
get-
prostate cancer, for reconstruction, for pediatrics,
Yep.
for oncology, and pick one, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question. You've been there for 20 years.
Half my life.
Is it half your life?
Almost half my life.
Have we been in this together for 20 years?
Yes, we have.
Oh my God, you go, girl. It's
We
my
have.
partner in crime.
We
You've
have.
been awesome.
Thank
So, in your 20 years of doing this, what would be the message, if you could tell everyone out there listening about what they need to know about their human plumbing, right? What would be the message you would want people to know?
I guess I would want people to know that you're not alone. You might think, oh my goodness, I'm leaking, or you know what, I'm having trouble. Trust me, so is 90% of the world around you. Even your neighbor, you might not even know your neighbor is having issues. And they come in, they just need to come in. Don't be afraid. That's what we're here for. And especially this group of urologists, they're amazing.
Yeah, they are. It is
Beyond
a special
amazing.
group.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that all urologists in general,
Yes.
well, they do have the best reputation for having the best sense of humor of all of all the medical students. Urologists are the funniest,
They are.
and you do have to have a sense of humor with this subject.
Yeah.
A light-hearted approach is
Exactly.
probably the best way to handle such a sensitive subject.
Exactly.
So I know that my mother, she had issues. My father had issues. I will tell you one thing my father does. He's 93, and he watches that TV every day. And every day he comes out and tells me, there's a new prostate pill on this commercial, and I'm pretty sure I need to buy that. But, right?
Oh yes.
Do you have all these
We
patients?
have all those patients coming in with their.
So I have a question about all these commercials, because I think my dad has tried to convince me to get all of them. Do they work? I mean, like clinically or placebo effect? What do you think?
Placebo effect.
You
In my
think-
opinion, yes, because the patient's like, man, I've been using this cat nail hair thing from the rabbit and this and that, and it's worked. He stopped urinating and this and that. I'm like, okay.
But he
So-
was getting injections, right?
Yeah. Yet he would come every 2 weeks for treatments and for
Real treatment.
Yes.
But
So
he felt good taking it, didn't
Yes,
he?
he did.
He felt good taking the stuff off the television.
Yes, he did. Especially if you constantly see that on TV. Like,
Yeah, my dad does. He watches a lot of TV.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, if it makes you feel better, the message is, by all means,
Do it.
go for it. Let your urologist know what you're taking.
Yes. Of
Yeah,
course.
bring all your medications in when you go to see the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Angela, this has just
Yeah.
been so interesting. Urology is a subject that just never seems to stop. People in our community, we live in a small community, so we're very popular, aren't we?
I can be in the grocery store and I've had people come and tell me, oh, this is my wife, this is my kids, this is.
And they're patients, right?
Yes, they invite me to their birthday parties, to this and stuff because.
Yeah, you helped them.
Yes.
Yeah, I had one the other night at dinner, and my husband put a penile implant in the gentleman. And when he saw my husband come into the restaurant, I mean, his face lit up like a Christmas tree, which was my clue that we were going to have a visit to the table. And he'd had a drink or two, and he was so happy. And I could see him coming. He's like, Doc, it works amazing, better than I ever thought. And I'm like, wow, I'm pretty sure I need to go powder my nose so you two can finish this conversation. But what we want the audience to know is that regardless of what your urological condition is, that you want to call your urologist, make the time to pick up the phone, get help with your urological issues. These urologists, you cannot shock them. They have given their life to learn urology, to help you with your urological condition. And there are amazing professional staff like Angela, who's been doing it for 20 years, who knows the ropes, and is going to make sure that you get through the clinic, get your problem solved, and get your quality of life back. Because people are suffering, and we're here to tell you, you don't need to suffer anymore. These are not complicated solutions. You just have to pick up the phone. So pick up your phone, call your board-certified urologist. If you're nervous, you're a woman, ask your gynecologist to refer you to a board-certified urologist because your problem can be solved. So Angela, on that note, I really want to thank you for making time to come and hang out and talk all things urology.
Anytime.
Do you have questions for me?
No, I don't. I think I already know all the answers.
Yeah, she's known me for 20 years. That's almost embarrassing. There's not one question you have for me?
No, I don't have any questions.
I know, I'm pretty open and honest and direct. Do I overshare?
Yeah, a lot. But that's okay. That's what makes
it's a big subject, and we're brave here.
Yes.
So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Thank you for answering all our questions. I promise to have you back because I want to go a little bit deeper into some other subjects that we weren't able to cover today.
Yes, let me know.
So, Angela, thank you for being here. And thank you, everybody, for coming to our show.
Thank you for listening to I Married a Urologist with Madeline Zech Ruiz. Please push the subscribe button below the screen and leave us a comment. For more information on urological questions, feel free to contact us through our website, www.imarriedurologist.com. And be sure to catch our next fun and educational episode on all things urology.